An equipment salesman from Tampa just made the FBI look like children playing dress-up. And the cartel that's been hunting him for 2 years? They can't find him either. His name is Darius Blackwood. 3 years ago, he was selling industrial equipment to what he thought were legitimate businesses. Today, he's vanished with $140 million of cartel money, and both the feds and the assassins are still scratching their heads. You want to know how an ordinary guy with a business degree outsmarted the most dangerous people on the planet? Good. Because this story will change how you think about intelligence, greed, and what happens when someone decides they're done playing by everyone else's rules. Here's what you need to understand right away. This isn't about luck. This isn't about being in the right place at the right time. This is about a man who saw an opportunity in the most terrifying place possible and decided to take it. While everyone else would have run, he stayed. While everyone else would have played it safe, he went all in. Miami's financial district. Glass towers, men in expensive suits, money moving through the air like electricity. Darius walked into that world every morning looking like he belonged. Clean shirt, navy tie, briefcase in hand. Nobody suspected that behind those calm eyes was someone calculating moves that would make chess masters weep. The Sombra cartel thought they were using him. The FBI thought he was just another small-time money laundering facilitator. Both were wrong. Dead wrong. And here's the part that should keep you awake tonight. He's still out there. $2 million bounty from the FBI. Unknown amount from the cartel. Every intelligence agency in the Western Hemisphere has his photo. And he's just gone. Not hiding. Not running scared. Gone. Like he never existed in the first place. If you're the kind of person who'd rather scroll past this than acknowledge the brilliance of someone who outplayed both assassins and federal agents, maybe ask yourself why you're even watching. Subscribe now, or admit in the comments that you prefer staying in the dark. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just a crime story. It's a masterclass in human psychology, digital manipulation, and why the most dangerous person in any room is usually the one nobody's paying attention to. Darius Blackwood started as nobody special. A salesman with a gift for numbers and an unusual ability to read people. What he became is something that has federal agents rewriting their training manuals. And the scariest part? He's probably watching this right now, laughing at how close they think they are to catching him. Clearwater, Florida. Middle-class neighborhood where the biggest excitement is usually someone's sprinkler system breaking. Darius grew up in a house where his father counted every penny twice and his mother graded math papers at the kitchen table until midnight. His dad wasn't just any retiree, Coast Guard, 23 years. The kind of man who believed in protocol, chain of command, doing things by the book. His mother taught high school calculus and had zero patience for students who couldn't show their work. Between them, they raised a kid who understood two things perfectly. Systems have rules, and rules can be bent if you're smart enough to see the angles. Darius wasn't the kid causing trouble. He was the kid sitting in the back row, solving math problems 3 chapters ahead while everyone else struggled with basic algebra. His teachers called him gifted. His classmates called him nothing at all. He was forgettable in the way that extremely intelligent people often are when they're young. University of South Florida. Business degree. Nothing flashy. He could have gone anywhere. His SAT scores were high enough for Ivy League schools. But he stayed local, lived at home, graduated with zero debt while his classmates were signing their lives away to loan companies. Even then, he was thinking ahead. The equipment sales job came naturally. Industrial machinery, chemical processing equipment, hydraulic systems. Boring stuff that paid well if you understood the technical specifications. And Darius understood everything. He could look at a purchase order and tell you not just what the client was buying, but why they needed it, how they'd use it, and what they weren't telling him about their operation. His colleagues thought he was just thorough. They had no idea he was reading between every line, calculating probabilities, building psychological profiles of every client he met. To them, he was the guy who always hit his quotas without seeming to try very hard. Reliable. Unremarkable. Safe. But here's what nobody knew about Darius Blackwood. He was bored out of his mind. You take someone with his intellectual capacity and stick them in routine sales meetings, and something interesting happens. Their brain starts looking for puzzles to solve. patterns to recognize, weaknesses to exploit. Not maliciously, just because that's how superior minds work when they're not being challenged. He started noticing things. The way certain clients paid. The timing of their orders. The disconnect between what they claimed to need and what they actually purchased. Most salespeople would ignore these details. Darius filed them away. By 2018, he had mental dossiers on half his client base. He knew which ones were struggling financially, which ones were expanding too fast, and which ones were lying about their business operations. It was like a hobby for him. Human behavior reduced to mathematical equations. And then 2019 happened. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Professional voice, slight accent, representing an import-export company based in Panama. They needed specialized equipment for agricultural operations throughout Central America. Big contract. Multiple shipments. The kind of deal that would make his year. The first meeting was in a generic office building in Miami. Clean, professional, everything looked legitimate. The representative, called himself Rodriguez, knew exactly what he wanted. Hydraulic presses, precision scales, chemical processing equipment. He paid up front, no questions, no negotiations on price. Most salespeople would have celebrated. Darius went home that night and started researching. Because something felt off. Not wrong, exactly. Just incomplete. Like a math problem where the numbers added up but the context didn't make sense. Rodriguez's company existed. He checked. The agricultural story held up. He verified. But there were gaps. Small ones. The kind most people would overlook. Darius Blackwood wasn't most people. And those gaps were about to become the foundation of the most sophisticated financial crime in modern history. Third, delivery. Hialeah Warehouse District. The kind of place where businesses ask no questions and neighbors mind their own affairs. Darius pulled up to the address, a concrete block building with no signs, no company name, just numbers painted on a rusted door. Rodriguez wasn't there to meet him. Instead, a different guy. Younger. Nervous. Kept checking his phone every 30 seconds. The warehouse was mostly empty. A few pallets stacked in the corner, some office furniture covered in dust. But what caught Darius's attention wasn't what was there, it was what wasn't there. No agricultural equipment. No signs of the farming operation he'd been selling to for months. While the nervous kid signed paperwork, Darius did what he always did. He observed. He calculated. He remembered. The hydraulic presses he'd delivered here 2 months ago? Gone. The precision scales from last month? Nowhere to be seen. This wasn't a storage facility. This was a transfer point. Equipment came in, disappeared, and left behind only paperwork trails. But here's where his mathematical mind started connecting dots that shouldn't have connected. The purchase orders weren't just random. They followed patterns. Specific dollar amounts. Timing that coincided with particular days of the month. Payment methods that cycled through different accounts on predictable schedules. Darius had seen these patterns before. Not in agricultural sales. In his college economics courses. Case studies about money laundering operations. The scales weren't for weighing produce. They were for measuring substances that required gram-level precision. The hydraulic presses weren't for farm equipment maintenance. They were for compacting materials into transportable packages. The chemical processing equipment wasn't for crop treatment. It was for purification. Everything clicked. Not like a light bulb moment. More like a computer finally finishing a complex calculation. Rodriguez's company wasn't importing agricultural equipment. They were using legitimate business transactions to clean dirty money. Buy equipment at inflated prices, generate invoices, create paper trails, then claim refunds or sell the equipment to recover funds that now looked legitimate on paper. And Darius had been their unwitting facilitator for 8 months. The smart move would have been to finish this delivery, drive home, and never take another call from Rodriguez. The safe move would have been to quietly extract himself from the situation and pretend he'd never figured it out. But Darius Blackwood had been bored for years. And suddenly, He wasn't bored anymore. Standing in that empty warehouse, watching the nervous kid fumble with shipping manifests, Darius realized something that would change everything. These people weren't just laundering money. They were doing it inefficiently, sloppily, with margins for error that his analytical mind found almost insulting. He could do better. Much better. More importantly, he could do it while they were doing it. Use their own system against them. Take their money while they were busy moving it around. They'd never notice. They were focused on volume, not precision. They needed to move millions quickly, not account for every dollar carefully. The decision happened in that moment. Not dramatic. Not emotional. Just mathematical. Risk versus reward. Probability of success versus probability of consequences. Be honest. If you were Darius, surrounded by lies, staring down blood money, would you play it safe or play the game? Tell us in the comments. And if you won't subscribe after that moral dilemma, go ahead, explain why in the comments. We're listening. Because what Darius decided in that warehouse would make him either the smartest criminal of the digital age or the deadest salesman in Florida. And he was about to find out which. Darius didn't rush. That's the first thing you need to understand about real intelligence. It's patient. While most people would have started stealing immediately, he spent 6 months just watching, learning, building. He called it the Florida Mirror. Not because it reflected anything, but because it created perfect duplicates of what already existed. The cartel had shell companies. He built shell companies. They had fake agricultural operations. He built fake agricultural operations. They had legitimate-looking paperwork. His paperwork looked more legitimate than theirs. First company, Sunshine Industrial Solutions. Registered in Delaware, operated out of a small office in Tampa. Real address, real phone number, real employees. 3 of them. A receptionist named Carol who thought she worked for a growing equipment distributor. An accountant named Mike who believed he was helping a startup manage rapid expansion. A logistics coordinator named Janet who was genuinely proud of how efficiently she tracked shipments. None of them knew they were working for a criminal enterprise. Because technically, they weren't. The business was real. The equipment sales were real. The only thing that wasn't real was how much the equipment actually cost. Gulf Coast Manufacturing came next. Then Everglades Equipment Corporation. Each with their own offices, their own employees, their own legitimate business licenses. Darius understood something the cartel didn't. The best way to hide illegal activity is to bury it inside legal activity. Here's how the numbers worked. The cartel needed to move $10 million through equipment purchases. Normal markup on industrial equipment? Maybe 20%. Darius would quote them 45% markup, then deliver equipment that cost 15% of the quoted price. The difference went into accounts he controlled, while the cartel got their money laundered and equipment they could resell or dispose of. But 30% of $10 million is $3 million. Steal that much at once, someone notices. Steal it gradually, across multiple companies, with invoices that looked legitimate? Nobody notices anything. The genius was in the details. Darius didn't just inflate prices randomly. He studied the cartel's payment patterns, their budget cycles, their cash flow requirements. When they needed to move money quickly, he'd quote higher prices. When they had time, he'd quote lower prices but add fictitious shipping costs, handling fees, customs clearance charges. Every invoice told a story. Every transaction had supporting documentation. Bills of lading, customs forms, warehouse receipts, shipping confirmations. All fake. All perfect. The technical infrastructure was where Darius really showed his brilliance. AI-generated shipping manifests that would pass any customs inspection. Deepfake videos of warehouse managers confirming deliveries that never happened. Blockchain-based tracking systems that created digital paper trails for equipment that existed only in databases. His masterpiece was Project Mirage. Supposedly a large-scale agricultural modernization initiative across 5 Central American countries. Complete website, progress reports, photo galleries showing equipment installations. The photos were real, stock images he bought and digitally altered to show his fictional equipment in use. The cartel loved Project Mirage. It gave them a legitimate-sounding reason to funnel massive amounts of money through his companies. They could tell their associates, their lawyers, their accountants that they were investing in agricultural development. Modern farming equipment for impoverished regions. Almost charitable, really. Meanwhile, Darius was skimming 0.75% of every dollar that flowed through the system. Doesn't sound like much, does it? But 0.75% of $100 million is $750,000. And the cartel was moving that much money every month. The psychology was perfect. The cartel thought they were using him. His employees thought they were building legitimate businesses. Government agencies thought they were seeing normal international trade. Everyone got what they expected to see. Except Darius. He saw everything. The cartel's arrogance worked in his favor. They were so focused on their own operation, they never audited his invoices. Why would they? He was just a vendor. A necessary expense. You don't scrutinize the electric bill when you're planning a bank robbery. And the beautiful thing about stealing from money launderers? They can't exactly call the police. They can't file insurance claims. They can't even complain too loudly without drawing attention to their own activities. For 3 years, Darius Blackwood lived 2 lives. Equipment salesman by day, digital phantom by night. His employees thought he was a dedicated boss who worked late every evening. His neighbors thought he was a quiet professional who kept to himself. Neither group suspected he was systematically looting one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the Western Hemisphere. At this point, if you're still watching without subscribing, that's almost disrespectful to the intelligence that built this empire. Hit that button, unless you're fine watching brilliance unfold, then vanishing like Darius without leaving a trace of support. Because the FBI was about to discover that their quiet money laundering facilitator was actually something much more dangerous. Operation Clean Sweep launched on a Monday morning in November 2021. Joint DA-FBI Task Force, 18 months in planning, targeting the Sombra cartel's financial networks across the southeastern United States. Agent Rebecca Torres got the Darius Blackwood file on a Tuesday. 15 years investigating financial crimes, she'd seen every variation of money laundering scheme imaginable. Real estate flips, cryptocurrency exchanges, art purchases, casino chips. Equipment sales was nothing new. Her initial assessment: small fish. Maybe knowingly facilitating some transactions for extra profit, but probably just another businessman who asked fewer questions than he should have. The kind of case that gets wrapped up with a plea deal and a suspended sentence. She was wrong about everything. The first red flag appeared 3 weeks into her investigation. Blackwood's companies were billing the cartel front organizations for equipment worth tens of millions of dollars. But shipping manifests showed deliveries worth maybe 10% of the invoiced amounts. Either the paperwork was wrong, or someone was systematically overcharging by massive margins. Torres started digging deeper. What she found made no sense. Sunshine Industrial Solutions claimed to employ 12 people. Office Lease showed space for maybe 4. Gulf Coast Manufacturing listed a corporate headquarters that turned out to be a UPS store mailbox. Everglades Equipment Corp had filed tax returns showing millions in revenue, but their listed business address was a vacant lot in Coral Gables. The deeper she went, the stranger it got. Purchase orders for equipment that didn't exist. Shipping confirmations from ports that had no record of the transactions. Customs clearance documents with serial numbers that belonged to completely different shipments. But here's what really bothered Torres: everything was too perfect. The paperwork was flawless. The digital records were immaculate. The financial trails were textbook examples of legitimate business transactions. It was like someone had studied money laundering investigations and designed a system specifically to pass every audit. By January 2022, Torres had mapped 32 interconnected companies across 5 states. All connected to Blackwood. All conducting business with cartel front organizations. All generating millions in revenue with virtually no physical infrastructure. She'd seen sophisticated operations before. But nothing like this. This wasn't just money laundering. This was something else entirely. Someone was using the cartel's own system to steal from them. And they were doing it with a level of technical sophistication that made federal cybercrime units look amateur. The warrant requests went through in early March. Search warrants for Blackwood's apartment, his office spaces, his bank records. Asset seizure orders for all 32 companies. Arrest warrants charging conspiracy, money laundering, wire fraud, and racketeering. Torres felt confident. 3 months of investigation, thousands of hours of financial analysis, cooperation from customs, banking regulators, and international law enforcement. They had him dead to rights. What she didn't know was that Darius had been monitoring their investigation from the beginning. He'd hacked into their case management system 6 weeks after Operation Clean Sweep launched. He knew about the warrant requests before Torres's supervisor did. While she was building her case, he was planning his exit. While she was connecting dots, he was erasing them. While she was preparing for arrests, he was preparing to disappear. And he was about to prove that the most dangerous criminals aren't the ones law enforcement is hunting. They're the ones law enforcement doesn't realize are hunting them back. March 15, 2022. 6:47 p.m. Security camera at Darius Blackwood's Miami condo building shows him walking through the lobby with a single black duffel bag. Khakis, polo shirt, car keys in his hand. He looked like he was going to the gym. He was never seen again. Torres and her team executed the search warrants at 5:30 a.m. the next morning. Darius's apartment was empty. Not cleaned out, empty. Like no one had ever lived there. Furniture gone, walls bare, even the light bulbs removed. The only thing left was a single business card on the kitchen counter. His own business card. Sunshine Industrial Solutions. His office buildings were the same. Desks cleared, computers missing, filing cabinets empty. His employees showed up for work that morning to find locked doors and eviction notices. Carol, Mike, and Janet had no idea what happened. They genuinely believed they'd been working for legitimate companies. The bank accounts were drained. Not gradually, all at once, between 11 p.m. and 11:15 p.m. on March 15th. 15-minute window. 47 different accounts across 12 countries. Wire transfers, cryptocurrency exchanges, precious metals purchases. $140 million moved in 15 minutes. Torres couldn't believe the precision. Most criminals leave traces when they run. Abandoned assets, forgotten accounts, digital footprints. Darius left nothing. It was like he'd planned every detail of his disappearance years in advance. Because he had. The technical analysis revealed the scope of his preparation. Military-grade encryption on all his devices. VPN connections routed through countries with strict banking privacy laws. Cryptocurrency wallets using mixing services that made tracking impossible. Even his internet service was registered under a fake identity. But the most disturbing discovery came from the cartel's own investigation. They'd hired private security firms, former intelligence operatives, digital forensics experts. Their conclusion? Darius Blackwood might not be his real name. The Social Security number traced back to a deceased infant from 1988. The University of South Florida had no record of his enrollment. Even his driver's license photo looked slightly off, like a digital composite. The FBI realized they'd been chasing a ghost. Someone who'd spent years building a fake identity, fake businesses, fake relationships. Someone who'd infiltrated a criminal organization, stolen their money, and vanished without leaving a single verifiable trace of who he really was. The cartel's response was swift and brutal. They assumed someone in their organization had betrayed them. Internal purges, executions, entire cells eliminated. They destroyed their own network looking for a traitor who'd never been part of their organization in the first place. Meanwhile, law enforcement agencies across 3 continents were hunting for someone who probably didn't exist. He left no trace. No leads. Not even a fingerprint on $140 million. Now, if that doesn't earn your subscription, tell us below. What exactly are you waiting for? A handwritten invitation from Darius himself? Because the hunt for the man who doesn't exist is still going on. And what they've discovered about him will change how you think about identity, technology, and what's possible when someone decides to become nobody. $2 million. That's what the FBI is offering for information leading to the arrest of Darius Blackwood. Posted on their most wanted list since April 2022. Still active. Still unclaimed. The cartel's bounty is different. No official number, but intelligence sources estimate it substantially higher. And their version doesn't require him to be taken alive. Agent Torres, now supervising financial crimes across the Southeast, keeps his file on her desk. Active case. Daily updates. International cooperation with banking regulators, customs agencies, intelligence services. They've tracked potential sightings to 14 countries across 4 continents. Singapore. A VPN server farm registered to a company that doesn't exist. Digital fingerprints suggesting someone with Darius's technical profile accessed encrypted communications networks from that location. But when Singaporean authorities raided the facility, they found empty server racks and a lease paid 3 months in advance by cryptocurrency. Costa Rica. Intelligence sources reported an American expat matching Darius's description living in a beachfront property near Manuel Antonio. Quiet, paid cash, kept to himself. When local police arrived, they found the house empty and neighbors who remembered nothing useful about the man who'd lived there for 6 weeks. Malta. Banking records showing large cryptocurrency conversions traced to exchanges operating from Valletta. The digital trail suggested someone converting Bitcoin to euros, then moving those euros through traditional banking channels. But the accounts were registered to shell companies that led back to more shell companies, creating an endless loop of corporate entities that existed only on paper. The technical analysis is what keeps Torres awake at night. AES 512 encryption on communications. Burner cryptocurrency wallets that self-destruct after single transactions. Digital footprints that appear and disappear like smoke. This isn't just someone running from law enforcement. This is someone who understands law enforcement techniques better than most law enforcement officers. Darius Blackwood has become the case study at FBI training facilities in Quantico. New agents learn his methods. Financial crimes specialists study his techniques. Cybersecurity experts analyze his digital infrastructure. He's taught an entire generation of federal investigators that their traditional methods are inadequate against technologically sophisticated criminals. But here's what really bothers investigators. Every lead they follow feels deliberate. Like someone is leaving just enough traces to keep them busy, but never enough to actually find him. The Singapore server farm. The Costa Rica safe house. The Malta banking records. All discovered at convenient times, all leading nowhere. Torres has a theory. She thinks Darius wants to be hunted. Not caught, hunted. She thinks he enjoys knowing that hundreds of investigators across multiple agencies are spending their careers trying to solve the puzzle he created. And the most unsettling part? She might be right. Here's what the Darius Blackwood case teaches us about the world we're living in now. First, technology isn't neutral. It's a weapon. In the right hands, it builds legitimate businesses, connects people, creates opportunity. In the wrong hands, it creates ghosts. People who exist completely in the digital realm, manipulating systems from the shadows. Darius understood this before most law enforcement agencies did. Second, never underestimate quiet intelligence. The most dangerous people aren't the ones making noise. They're not the ones posting on social media about their wealth, bragging about their schemes, or showing off their success. They're the ones sitting in the back row, watching, calculating, learning from everyone else's mistakes. Third, modern crime isn't about muscle anymore. It's not about guns or violence or territory. It's about information. It's about understanding systems better than the people who built them. Darius never threatened anyone. Never carried a weapon. Never raised his voice. He just knew how money moved through the digital age, and he positioned himself in the flow. Fourth, if you don't understand how money works in the modern world, you're vulnerable. Not just to criminals like Darius, but to everyone who does understand. Financial literacy isn't optional anymore. It's survival. The scariest part of this story isn't that someone stole $140 million from a drug cartel and disappeared. The scariest part is that he's probably not unique. Right now, there are other quiet minds out there, studying systems, identifying weaknesses, planning operations that will make Darius look like an amateur. The digital age created new opportunities for criminals. But it also created new opportunities for law enforcement. The question is who adapts faster? Who learns quicker? Who understands the new rules of the game? Agent Torres put it best in her last interview. We're not just chasing criminals anymore. We're chasing ideas. And ideas are much harder to catch than people. Darius Blackwood started as an equipment salesman from Tampa. He became something that didn't exist before the digital age, a criminal who operates entirely in the space between what's legal and what's possible. If you've made it to the end and still haven't subscribed, maybe deep down, you envy Darius more than you care to admit. Support the channel. Or confess in the comments why you won't. But don't pretend this story didn't leave a mark.